All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I'm Dave. This is the Radical Independent, where honestly, folks, I'm really not all that radical, except I'm radically not a Democrat and I'm radically not a Republican. I'm radically independent-minded, and the two-party collapse, we are witnessing this, and we have a candidate, by the way. Her name is Tulsi Gabbard, who could actually restore faith in our democracy. She could do that. I'm not sure if the media is going to allow it to occur, but I want to give you a little bit of what Tulsi said here at this public service forum. It's on her Twitter feed. It might be on YouTube as well. Tulsi Gabbard, and I know this is going to be a bit of a clickbait title, but Tulsi Gabbard is a woman scorned. And you'll see what I mean by that when you listen to her here addressing the forum.
Like so many Americans across this country, because I wanted to do my small part in going after those terrorists who attacked us on that day, taking thousands of American lives.
As a young person, Tulsi Gabbard was taught that service to your country is a noble cause. You know, putting on a uniform and serving your country is something that you can be proud of. But imagine again, your employer is the United States government. And they've told you, okay, this is a bad dude. He is directly related to the people that knocked over our buildings in New York City. We need to go oust this guy, take him out, dead or alive. And everybody in the United States is 100% behind you and believe what we've told them repeatedly, that this guy has weapons of mass destruction and he's going to destroy civilization as we know it. All right? And so Tulsi Gabbard, a young woman at that time, says, I want to serve my country.
I wanted to do my part to keep the American people safe. We were lied to. We, the American people, were lied to. Our leaders then sent us to go fight in a war in Iraq to topple a brutal dictator, Saddam Hussein, because they said he was working with Al-Qaeda. They have weapons of mass destruction. They're going to come after us.
Okay, so for all of you people who tune in to hear Tulsi Gabbard sympathizing with certain dictators, notice that she addressed Saddam Hussein as a brutal dictator. A brutal dictator. She didn't say, some leader of a foreign country. She didn't arbitrarily address him and give him some sort of a generic title, a meaningless title. She called him a brutal dictator. Just wanted to point that out to a few of you.
We were lied to. What was the consequence of that? Thousands, over 4,000 of my brothers and sisters were killed in that war. Countless more were injured.
Okay, so you got 4,000 people dead because the United States government told Tulsi Gabbard a lie. Let that sink in for just a millisecond or two. Doesn't take long. Doesn't take long to sink in. Not only did the United States government lie, but they used the media, the entire media, as propaganda. And remember, if you weren't for this particular war, you were unpatriotic. I remember it like it was yesterday. The people who were running against George W. Bush, the people who, John Kerry, who, again, was kind of a waste of time because I believe he would have continued the war. He would have maybe done some different things, moved the deck chairs around on the Titanic, but he was feeding off of this anti-war sentiment, which, again, John Kerry, Joe Biden, yeah, they're still going to do the same stuff. They're just going to package things differently, and because they're corporate resistance Democrats, nobody's going to call anything out on them.
Coming home with both visible and invisible wounds. I will apologize to no one for doing everything that I possibly can to stop leaders in our government from continuing to send our men and women, my brothers and sisters in uniform, from fighting in these senseless, wasteful regime change wars.
Okay. Now there's an applause line finally. That obviously is a defense of what everybody now is talking about who opposes Tulsi Gabbard. Her infamous meeting with Assad, an evil, brutal dictator, because she didn't want the United States to do what they did in Syria. She didn't want a repeat performance of that. So she said, okay, I'm an elected official. I can meet with this guy. Yeah, I know he's a brutal dictator. And this notion that Tulsi Gabbard doesn't understand or sympathizes. In other words, it's almost as if the media is trying to tell people that she wants to kind of sit down with Assad, maybe have a beer, and just talk about how what he's doing is fine with her as far as what he's doing in his own country, how he's ruling his own country, and she sympathizes with that man. Okay, I mean, I don't know how else to try to interpret this or extrapolate what they're trying to do. This idea of please call out this man as evil. Okay, he's evil, but it doesn't mean we need to go to war against him. He's evil, but he's not affecting the United States. If anything, we've been meddling in Syria now for probably decades. I mean, I'd have to go back and take a look at our involvement in Syria. But, we arm one group of so-called moderate rebels who aren't really all that moderate. And then there are some other rebels that we didn't account for. And so, again, we're butting in where we don't belong. And we're trying to pick winners and losers. And we're trying to oust this guy Assad. So then we can install our puppet and then make things even worse for the people of Syria. Does Libya ring a bell? Anyone? Does Iraq ring a bell, which she's ringing here in this speech? All right, let's continue here.
So if that means meeting with a brutal dictator in the pursuit of national security, in the pursuit of preventing more of our brothers and sisters from being sent into harm's way, on missions that make our country less safe, that cause more loss of life, then I will do so. Because here's the bottom line. The only alternative to diplomacy is war.
Okay, I throw my hands into the air and I go, what human being here in the United States, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Green Party, No Party, what human being here in the United States would be against what she just said at the end there? Is it because we've gotten so used to the fact that, as Tim Ryan says, we need to be engaged? What do we need to be engaged in? What other countries are doing? You can look at what our money used to say in the old days. Very old days. You have to kind of Google this and look it up and so forth. But I read this a long time ago somewhere. And the money used to say, mind your own business. Mind our money. Instead of things like e pluribus unum, which probably said as well, it said, it was a reminder to everybody, hey, we're the United States of America. We're an independent, free nation. We don't meddle in these foreign affairs, these foreign entanglements, because they're perpetual and they never end. They just go on in perpetuity. And Tulsi Gabbard is a woman scorned. Why? Because she went into this war thinking that she was doing good for her country. And yet, it was a mission based on a big, fat lie. And that's actually a quote from Donald Trump when he was running for president and lecturing all the other Republicans in the Republican primary. Now, as we know, Trump hired John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, and his vice president is Mike Pence, all of whom are war hawks. Tulsi Gabbard wouldn't hire these people. There's no way. She would probably have to look outside the usual group of Washington insiders in order to choose her cabinet. But there'd be no way. There's no way. She's a woman scorned. And you don't mess with a woman who's scorned, especially in this way. This is somebody, again, who saw people dying because of our foreign policy. And the media establishment in this country just looks the other way. They hear what you're saying. They go, okay, yeah, but what about, is Assad a dictator? Can you tell us he's a dictator? Well, tell us again. Tell us in a new way how Assad is a dictator. Can you phrase it a little bit differently? So, are you for Assad or against him? I'm neither. I want him to obviously stop what he's doing to his own people. That would be great. But as far as our involvement in that situation, it has to be through diplomacy or some other way. It cannot be putting boots on the ground or dropping bombs from airplanes in order to say, hey, we want this guy out so we can put in our new puppet, who then won't have the best interests of their people. No, you know who the puppet will be beholden to? Us, the United States. So their people will suffer even more because the puppet will be trying to make us happy, or at least our government, not me and you. So I know this is a difficult thing for a lot of people to understand, this foreign policy, which apparently has nothing to do with any real issues that the media cares about, because the media cares about only the politically correct stuff. They're only really concerned these days about calling out racism and homophobia and these things that have become very hyper in nature and don't affect most people. I'm not trying to be Tucker Carlson here, and I'm not saying there isn't racism, and I'm not saying there isn't bigotry, and I'm not saying there isn't homophobia and so forth, but holy crap, we need to take a few steps back and look at the big picture and say, this is an issue that affects everything. $1 trillion. Our military is getting $1 trillion. $4 billion per month in one conflict. That's just one conflict in Afghanistan. $4 billion. That's a lot of money, people. And we've got a lot of infrastructure that needs work. We've got a lot of homeless on the streets. We've got a lot of people who are underemployed or unemployed still. I know the unemployment rate is low, but yeah, you can get a job. $8, $9, $10 an hour. That's not going to do the trick. Housing costs have skyrocketed. And a lot of those increased rents are because Wall Street investors bought up all of these properties. This is a true story. After the bubble burst in 2007 and everything was worthless, they just went in. They had tons of money. They went in. They bought the stuff for pennies on the dollar. And now they're slumlords. And they're renting for $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 a month. The same apartment that used to probably cost you $900 or $1,000. I'm saying rent shouldn't be more than $1,000 a month. That's $250 a week. Break it down. I mean, you can go in some motels these days and spend less than this. And I'm not saying, a motel room is better than a whole house. But proportionally speaking, you should be getting a lot more money or a lot more bang for your buck, so to speak. So that's just a side issue. But these are the things that we need to be concerned about. What's really weird is that you've got this great candidate. It's funny. It says, we were lied to. Perfect. And all people are trying to do, the ladies on The View, Tim Black has this video out now on that, and your head wants to explode. You listen to these people, how they, well, I hear all these different people on the internet talking, and RT America, they seem to like her, and these are Russian bots. Let's think about this for 1 second. Russian bot. So a robot, right, programmed by Russians, or, I don't know, I guess that's what it is, right? I mean, the term bot has been shortened from robot, and I and other people like myself, by the way, I'm a former Trump supporter. No, I mean, do I apologize for supporting Trump? Initially, no, but obviously now, looking back, it wasn't a good vote because it's tearing the country apart. And who knew? But the media is fueling that. Go watch a Tim Pool video, and you'll figure that out quickly. And by the way, Tim Pool is not this hyper left or right guy. He's an observer like me, and he's looking at this and saying, what are we doing to our country? But this notion that you can't go to RT America for information, that all their information is kind of programmed by Vladimir Putin, I don't know, go check their channel, watch it for a couple of days, and then get back to me, or get back to whoever, and let them know if you're less informed than you were before. Are they covering real stories, which I'm pretty sure they are, and going into great detail, guys like Rick Sanchez on there, who have been, I mean, Rick's been everywhere as far as media prior to this. So he's what I believe to be an honest broker, a real truth teller, somebody who's concerned about good journalism. And, the late Ed Schultz was over there for a while. Again, in fact, the show that Sanchez has now, Ed Schultz had before. So, I don't know, this notion of just Russian bots supporting Tulsi Gabbard, it's complete insanity. It's so out of control that you're thinking to yourself, hey, that guy they banned from YouTube? I won't say his name because I'm afraid if it comes up in conversation, they'll immediately demonetize me. All right, he's kind of a lunatic, but he should have the right to say what he needs to say. All right, and that to me, even though he was kind of a conspiracy theorist, this is what you're getting from the regular mainstream news media. If everyone is a Russian bot is not a conspiracy theory, I'm not sure what is, because nobody ever offers proof. Nobody has proof. They just go to that. So anyway, Tulsi Gabbard, a woman scorned, and you don't mess with a woman scorned. See, her mission is not only for us, but it's somewhat personal. She's motivated by the fact that they sent her to a war. They lied about why the United States was going to war. It was just a pretext for the death of 4,000 Americans, not to mention probably the tens of thousands of people who died, who were civilians, who are on the other side of this, who wouldn't have died if the United States had just minded their own business. Just like the money used to say. All right, I'm done. It's depressing that more people just aren't awake. You hear this woke Democrat, woke Republican. It's woke. Woke is actually knowing information and not just being some lunatic. Knowing information that can help you actually make a good choice. And Tulsi Gabbard is the best choice we have running for president. And the people who don't see that, you're not woke. In fact, the wool, you're looking through lots of wool, and CNN, MSNBC, Fox News to some degree, they're all in bed and they're covering your eyes. Wake up before it's too late.